You can't change it.
No, no, you can't. You can't. But we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We are live from the shed end. Myself, TDOT, always. Joined by James Helder. How you doing?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say thank you to the Shed End for having me on as a guest. It's been a great pleasure to join the show. Thank you very much.
And also as well, let's do the plug. Pitch Footy.
Love
Yourself,
that. Love that.
the team behind you as well. Leon Knight, Curtis Woodhouse. If you haven't done that already, go and check it out. It's on YouTube as well. There's loads of stuff on there. Not even just that. There's loads of other stuff on there as well. All the stuff you've done with Carlton Palmer as well, and everything else on there. So I'm going to put the link as well in the description. So make sure you check out all of the stuff on there as well. But we are talking Chelsea again, obviously. Got James on because James is not a Chelsea fan, but he knows his football. So of course we had to get him on the channel as well. But James, I want to talk about, first of all, I want to talk about Graham Potter. I think it's only the best place to start. He came in.
Yeah.
He came in as a hopeful. I think off the back of Thomas Tuchel, when we think about how Thomas Tuchel ended his time at Chelsea, wasn't playing attractive football, wasn't playing decent football, lost a lot of confidence with some of the players, clearly didn't have the relationship that he needed to have with Todd Bowley and so on and so on. But what do you think about Graham Potter coming in? How has he done so far? Is the job too big for him? I suppose is the big question.
I personally was championing Graham Potter. I thought he did a tremendous job at Brighton. I think the recruitment at Brighton has been probably one of the best in recent years in English football. If you look at the players that they've recruited for 58 million, the 7 players or 8 players that they signed for that money, I don't think there's been better value in the transfer market, certainly in recent years. And I don't know how much of that is to do with Graham Potter or to do with the recruitment team, but I think they did a tremendous job. And the way Potter had Brighton playing was scary. Let's be brutally honest. Potter is here on merit. The blow up of him, or the glow up, should I say, I've been really, really fascinated about, because he's gone from looking a bit like a geography teacher to now looking like a high profile manager.
James Bond.
He looks like James Bond. And I've got a lot of time for that. Because he's a young English coach, I think he's the type of manager that we, or me personally, we should all be getting behind. I feel that he's a great endorsement for the British game, and it's fantastic to see a British coach getting the big jobs, which has been a bit of a reluctancy in the Premier League in recent years. So I personally am all for Graham Potter. The issue I've got is he's inherited a squad of players that he hasn't signed, that past managers, including Tuchel and Mourinho, couldn't get a tune out of. Otherwise, they would still be in their job. So I think he's in a really hard place at the moment. And looking at the results aren't looking good, are they? I think Chelsea haven't won in their last 7 matches, which is, when you think about it, is a really, really hard statistic. Chelsea managers in the past have lost their job for a lot less.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I
when
think,
we look at, go on, T.
No, you go. Keep going.
When we look at the players on the injury list for Chelsea, just having a little swat on the list before we came on. So you've got Kante, Chilwell, Mendy, Broja, who else? Loftus-Cheek.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's probably 8 or 9 first-team players that are not available. Pulisic.
Yeah.
This is a big loss for Graham Potter. Not only is Raheem Sterling, not only is he trying to get a tune out of Chelsea, he's probably missing 7 or 8 of his starting team. Which I think it's a big deal. It's
a fair point. It is a fair point. And I think if we took out Van Dijk and Thiago out of Liverpool, and we took out Casemiro and maybe Rashford at the moment in the form that he's in out of their squads, or I don't know, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who's playing really well for them as well. If we took all those players out their teams and then told them to go and get top 4, it would be a difficult task as well. But I think even with the squad that Graham Potter has now, the squad that he still has available to him, the players that have come in that are clearly for the future, the Carney Chukwuemekas and the youngsters that he's brought into the team, or Todd Bowley's brought into the team, it's the football. The football is dire. And I'm not saying we should be turning teams over 3-4-0, 2-0, 1-0, but it's just the football. The football is so bad that I don't know whether he's lost the dressing room already. And that's what, for me, my worry is he's on a 5-year deal. So thinking back, we had to pay Brighton X amount, I think, to get him out of his contract at Brighton. Then had to pay him, or we're paying him, I think it's 12 million a year, 5 years or something like that. So it's what, 58 million, something like that. Quick maths. If we sack him, he gets paid up. It just seems very scattergun. I'm looking at Todd Bowley in terms of the transfers now as well, missing out on Jesus, missing out on Rafinha, missing out on the elite. You know, these big players that we actually needed. And I think had we approached it better, we probably would have got them. I think that the approach that we're taking, even for Enzo Fernandez, doesn't make sense. We're going to get onto FELIX soon, who's, I think, having his medical right now. It's just, it seems all scattergun. It doesn't seem like there's any plan on and off the field, in my opinion. And I just from the outside looking in, as a non-Chelsea fan, like I'm all for backing a process and believing in a plan, but it's hard to do that when I think there isn't anything to see going forward. If you get what I'm saying, like there's no, do you get what I mean? Like look at Graham Potter at Brighton. You just said he was playing attractive football. Arguably, you could say he's got better players. I know some are injured, but he's still got better players on the pitch, a starting 11 that you match in Brighton right now. And we're not playing attractive football.
I personally think Graham Potter will be looking at some of this squad and thinking, I had better players at Brighton. I had less egos to deal with. And pound for pound, the Brighton players suited his system a lot more than what he's got. If you look at the Chelsea team at the moment as a house that's got furniture from 3 or 4 different managers or different designers, you're now trying to mesh that into a living room. It's very difficult. Like we touched on, you've got players from different regimes who are not Potter's players. When you sign a player, they have a certain respect for you. You bring them in, they know that manager chose you, you're that manager's choice, or you're that scouting recruitment's choice. I don't think Potter's got that. I don't think he's getting the respect he deserves from the players.
But I think it's the board as well. I think the board now, I mean, without being in the rooms, but it looks like the board are the ones who are making these decisions. I mean, JOAO FELIX is a brilliant player. I think he's a good player. I think he can offer something to Chelsea, but it wasn't top of the list. I mean, we look at the strike and, you know, we need a striker. I think Enzo Fernandez, that was the key deal for me to get that over the line. To go over there and almost verbally have an agreement. The player wants to leave Benfica. Benfica are putting him on the bench, not even trying to start him. They want him out of the club just as much as Chelsea want him. To mess that deal up, for me, you can't put down Graham Potter. I think you have to put down Todd Bowley. And I do think Graham Potter, to give him his credit, you know, started the season well. I think people are forgetting that as well. You know, he had a really good run as soon as he came into the squad, took over the squad. He has inherited other people's squads, but you could argue the case that Lampard, you know, had a more difficult job than Graham Potter.
With the transfer window ban, bringing through the youth players.
Youth players still got top 4. I know it was on the last day, I think, against Wolves, but he still got the job of doing the objectives done, mission accomplished. He done it. I can't see that with Graham Potter. And I know Chelsea fans are saying we need to give him time, and he has to get time. He's on a 5-year deal. You can't really sack him now. But do you think the 5-year deal was the thing that he's now hanging on, and the owners now, Todd Bowley and everyone else, is stuck in a position where they have to keep him, they have to back him, they can't sack him? Do you think that's the case now?
Let's have it right. Chelsea are 10th in the Premier League. Chelsea managers have lost their job for a lot less. Roberto Di Matteo got sacked after winning the Champions League. Thomas Tuchel got sacked after winning the Champions League. This is the highest accolade that you could. Frank Lampard got sacked after finishing 4th. I mean, Chelsea managers have lost their job for a lot less than what Graham Potter has achieved at the moment. Does the 5-year deal have any premise on him keeping his job? I really don't think Chelsea care about that. I think if they're going to pull the trigger, like they did with Sarri, they're going to pull the trigger. Once
you think they'll pay him up? You think they'd pay him up, even if like...
I think it's a realistic possibility. I really do. I don't think they're bothered about finances in terms of other clubs. Chelsea have got a way of running their club that if you're not getting W's after W, you will not be in the job there very long. And I think that comes from the Roman Abramovich era, which is something that's now been taken into the Todd Bowley era in terms of the way they run the club. And I really fear for Graham Potter. I really do. I was championing him Like I said, I'm really proud to see British coaches getting the top jobs. But I fear for him, and I feel if there isn't a turnaround very quickly, the fans are going to lose their patience with him. Once the fans turn on him, I don't think there's a way back. I really don't. I think Chelsea are very much influenced by the players and the fans as a whole. And the murmurs that I'm hearing is people are losing patience with Mr. Potter already. People are not
I agree
happy
with that.
with the way Chelsea are playing.
Yeah, I agree. I think even the City game, FA Cup, and I didn't agree with it. I think it's something that's not only disrespectful to Graham Potter, but to chant about Thomas Tuchel and the chant, I think that was a bit disrespectful to Graham Potter. To talk about Roman Abramovich and chant his name. I mean, it doesn't send a good message out to Chelsea, the ownership of Chelsea, Todd Bowley, doesn't send a good message out to Graham Potter. A lot of these fans, obviously match-going fans, well within their right. They've travelled, 4 hours, 5 hours on a cold Sunday. Do you know what I mean? A trip to Manchester to see their team get picked apart 4-0. And that was, to be fair, City scored another 4 goals. Let's be honest. They just took the foot off the gas a bit and just said, you know what, we've got 4. Let's leave it at 4. Don't embarrass them too much. But looking at the players, I mean, looking at the players that have come in, talk about the big names first. Koulibaly, Raheem Sterling, Mark Cucurella, Patrick Aubameyang. Give me your assessment on those 4 players so far this season. Don't want to include Wesley Fofana. I think it'd be a bit cruel to do that. But the 4 that have played at least, a handful of games under Graham Potter, what's your assessment of them 4?
I think Koulibaly's been absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
I think he's been absolutely shocking. And he hasn't been the player that you expected, anticipated to replace Uncle Rudiger. I think not keeping or finding a way to pay Rudiger what he wanted and to let him leave in the way he done, I think that's had a dramatic effect on Chelsea. I think it's been unsettling to the team. He was clearly your best defender. Thiago Silva, even though he's like 55, has been absolutely brilliant for Chelsea. I think he's been instrumental. But when you look at Koulibaly, I'm not getting it. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing the performances. Cucurella, for me, again, I think he could do a little bit more. He fantastic form at Brighton, but he had the players around him that suited the system. Don't think he's got that at Chelsea. We're seeing Sterling some games turning in at wing back, turning out as a 9. He's an out-and-out winger or a wing forward. And I don't think you've got the players to play the system that Graham Potter wants to play. And I think he's under pressure to fit them all in. You've got so many midfielders. I think he's under pressure to play these guys at times. Kovacic as well. Like, you need to look at these type of players. They're not giving you enough. I really think there's probably 7 or 8 players that are lucky to be at Chelsea Football Club at the moment. And if you look at past regimes, they wouldn't be there. They wouldn't be there. I think Graham Potter needs a window. He needs maybe 2 windows to put this right. And the ball needs to back him. If you're going to give him a 5-year contract, you need to give him the money to sign the players that he wants. Okay? You need to drop the egos and the 60, 70 million pound signings. We come back to what he did at Brighton. He signed, I think, 8 players for 58 million. Cucurella and Ben White are included in them, as well as Trossard, Mimano, some really, really good ballers, Casido. But these players weren't signed for big money. Are Chelsea going to accept players coming in for 6 or 7 million? I don't think they are.
I think it needs. I think that's exactly what it needs. I mean, you look at.
Can the fans handle that? Are they prepared to not have marquee name after marquee name?
It's got to be the way. I generally think if you look at the model as it is now, you look at as I said, the players that are coming in. I think bar maybe Koulibaly and Raheem Sterling, they're probably all under at least 25, 24. So I think the vision for Todd Bowley and potentially why he's gone for the Brighton blueprint, if you want to call it that, he's gone for this younger squad. He wants to get I don't think Todd Bowley wants the instant success now. He's willing to take, what's that saying? Short-term pain, long-term gain. He's willing to do that. He wants to see the end result in 5 years, Graham. You need to compete for the Champions League with the squad that we're building in 2023. But 4 or 5 years, you better be Champions League winning Graham Potter. I feel that might be the vision, but we're not even seeing that he's able to deal with just the basics. And I'm talking getting the team to get the ball forward, to attempt to try and score,
Mm.
a goal, the basics. And yes, injuries are a massive, red flag for that. But look at Brighton, the way, again, probably a bad example, but Brighton 4-1, letting Forest come back into the game. It's unheard of. It's not, again, I say on this channel all the time, it's not the fact that we're losing games, it's the manner in which we lose them. We just fold in like a deck chair. We don't even fight back. 1-0 down at City, FA Cup, last chance of silverware. Yes, we're in the Champions League, but realistically, Dortmund's going to be a nice game for us to moan about in a couple of weeks. But last chance of domestic silverware, something that most clubs, 10, 15 years ago had a lot of respect for. I just think it was the wrong kind of message to send out, and then to come off the pitch and say that the senior players don't have attitude problems. Well, clearly something's gone wrong at the club, in my opinion, because you've got the likes of certain players. I don't want to name them out, but there's players in there that you can clearly see aren't playing for this gaffer at all. And is it now a time to drop them? If someone's not playing well, I think that's his approach. Has he got to be ruthless and say, look, if you're not performing, you've got to drop them. We've got a bag of youngsters sitting, waiting to come and take your spot. Is that what the approach should be?
I think it should be, yeah. You've got a fantastic academy at Chelsea as well. You've got one of the best academies in the country. If the senior players aren't doing it, bring in competition for them. Bring some players from the academy. Go out and back Graham Potter. The issue I've got is you've given him a 5-year deal. I don't think that took into account the fact that you're going to be 10th in the Premier League. I think 2 or 3 more defeats and you're 12th, 13th.
Should I let you know something? Do you know our next 2 games? Fulham and Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
So Fulham are just above us and Palace are just below us, and they're 3 points, I think 2 or 3 points behind us. So should we lose those 2 games, we're in the bottom half of the table. Now, mentally, for the players, for the gaffer, that's tough to get out of that bottom half of the table when you're in it.
Do you know what else magnifies that? They're both London derbies.
Yeah.
Chelsea are a proud set of fans, and they've been spoiled. Let's have it right. They've been brutally spoiled over the years with the way the club's run and the quality of players that they've been able to sign year after year. If you're losing to Fulham and you're losing to Crystal Palace in 2 London derbies, that for me could spell the end of Grandpa. You look at the rivalry that Chelsea have for other London clubs and the way they conduct themselves, they are seen as, they are in their own eyes superior to the likes of Fulham and Crystal Palace. If you're getting dragged down in dogfights with these teams, it's not sending out the Chelsea message. It's not the Chelsea way. A lot of Chelsea managers have lost their jobs for a lot less. So I do fear for Graham Potter. I do fear for him. I really do. I really do. Let's come on to the fact of JOAO FELIX.
Yep.
Fantastic player. Atletico Madrid paid over 120 million euros to secure his services. It's clearly not worked. There's been an issue. I know the way they play under Simeone is very defensive. Doesn't get the most chances. He's asked to drop deep. It's not a system that suits that creativity. Is it a panic buy by Chelsea? The fact that they're getting him on loan with no deal to secure a future transfer. Yeah. Again, if he blows up and does well in the Premier League, his value is going to rocket. Is that good business? Should you be securing the option to buy on him? Not a guaranteed option, because if he flops, you don't want to be stuck with that wage bill. But should you be securing an option to buy him should he be successful?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think it's probably a panic buy. But again, I don't know. I can't tell you what the approach is, the transfer strategy. I don't see it. I don't see what we're trying to build. So I can't really say if it's a panic buy or not, because I don't see the vision. I think FELIX is a brilliant player. I like him, as I said. I think his injuries worry me a little bit. I'm sure he's had a couple of big injuries at Atletico. But again, you look at who's he going to be feeding the ball into? It's not going to be Aubameyang. Let's talk about Fofana that we've just signed going out on loan. And Kai Havertz is not a number 9. He's not a striker. He's not an out-and-out striker. So who is he feeding the ball into? To me, more pressing concerns. We need a new right back. I think, the greatest respect, Reece James is one of the best right backs in the world. But if you look at his injury record over the last 2 seasons, it tells you that even next season we could be in the same boat again with him. So
he's been out for 7 games. 7 games. No doubt you've had 7 losses. So,
oh yeah. Well, he came back for the Bournemouth one. He came back for the Bournemouth one. We looked really good against Bournemouth. We won 2-0. But as soon as he came off, I mean, you could tell the difference in the team already. So I think with Felix, I think he's going to be a good addition as long as we can build around him and we can get someone to put the ball in the back of the net. But I do think in terms of, Atletico being allowed to extend his contract, I think for 2 years, or a couple of years anyway, before he's moved on loan. Chelsea are paying the full wages for him as well. I mean, let's hope he does well, because if he doesn't, it's a long way, a long loan deal. We're footing the bill for the wages, and Atletico can have him back. But there's a big question around Lukaku. I mean, does he be? There was talk, I think, online yesterday about maybe Aubameyang or Lukaku going in the other direction after the loan. I know that he signed a new extension with Atletico, but contracts don't mean anything these days. So I do think he's going to be a good addition. Looking forward to seeing him, but I just think there was more pressing concerns in the squad. And Enzo Fernandez, for me, someone in that midfield. Right back is a massive concern. We're playing Trevor Chalobah there on Saturday, I think, on Sunday, sorry. So it tells you we need to, there's an urgent concern to get that position sorted ASAP. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. We have to see. I don't want to judge him before he's kicked a ball for the club, but I just think, in terms of business wise, paying all these wages, it's a bit mad. But before we wrap up, before we end, I just want to get your views on Chelsea's season and how, if Graham Potter turns it around, what are the realistic opportunities for Chelsea to be in top four?
Before we touch on that, I just want to touch on one more point. Let's look at some of the players that you've signed. They are players that have been at a loose end. Raheem Sterling, clearly not wanted by Manchester City and Pep. Aubameyang, forced out of Arsenal for his behaviour, labelled a bad egg. JOAO FELIX, unsettled at Atletico Madrid. Chelsea are used to signing players that are coming in to hit the ground running. When you look at the players that they've signed before, they've all been absolute monsters. They've hit the ground running. N'Golo Kante came from Leicester, just won the Premier League. Diego Costa come in, hit the ground running, flying initially. When you look at the type of player that they've recruited, they've all been loose ends. They've all been Bar Cucurella, who, he probably forced that move out of Brighton a little bit.
Yeah, so 100%.
Is morale, camaraderie, and loyalty the problem amongst some of these players? Have you got players that are up for it? That's the issue.
Not at the moment. Not at the moment. I think if you're a realistic Chelsea fan, you have to write this season off. Whether we get top four, that's a bonus. But I think in terms of trying to, if it means missing out on Europe altogether, I'd rather do that than get into that Conference League in this. But I think in terms of this season, you look at some of the players, like I said, they go 1-0 down, heads drop. They're not putting in a shift. And you can see that on the pitch. You can see it with Hakim Ziyech. You can see it at times with Mason Mount. You can see it with Kai Havertz. I could go on. But you're playing for a club. You're getting paid to play for a club, top club, established club, one of the best in the world. Like you said, got the best academies or one of the best academies. You're playing for the badge. There's players out there, like I said, the youngsters that are coming in that will grab someone's arm off to get an opportunity to run out at Stamford Bridge. So if it's a mentality thing, a morale thing, a ego thing, then now is the time for the owner, for the club, to get rid of them. And like I said in yesterday's video, it's not a case of just Mason Mount might be on a 300 grand contract soon. Koulibaly's just only signed; he's on 290 grand a week. It's not a case of just offloading these players, because if we move certain players on, the club that they're going to is going to need to pay them same wages. If they're not willing to do that, the players ain't moving anywhere because they're on 300 grand a week.
Then you're back in the Winston Bogart situation, aren't
you? Exactly my point. This is what I'm worried about. If we end up sacking Potter after a year or two, all these players are on big wages, long-term contracts, not going anywhere because they're getting paid nice money to sit on Cobham's training pitch, train every single week or every day, maybe run out for half an hour. I could go on. I feel like we need to get you back on at some point and continue this. Before we do wrap up, top four chances for Chelsea. Let me know your thoughts quickly.
There's still a lot of football to be played. There is a lot of football to be played with the World Cup as well. it's delayed. Really, we'd be further ahead on the games. Let's have it right at this point. I think the fact that there was a World Cup and it went straight into a window could be Graham Potter's saving grace.
Yep.
Because I feel if you would have had the run of games and fixtures as normal over the Christmas and World Cup period, I don't think you would have been as happy, as content, mildly as you are now. Do I see Graham Potter this season finishing the top 4 with Chelsea with the injuries? No, if I'm being brutally honest, I don't think it's going to happen this season. You've got too many injuries. You've got too many waifs and strays. There's not enough consistency from the players. I don't feel that you're going to be strong enough to get top 4 this season. I think top 6 will maybe be a push for Chelsea this year, if I'm being brutally honest. Because of it's magnified because of the way the other teams are playing. If you look at Arsenal, Manchester United, Man City, Tottenham, they are playing reasonably well. I know Tottenham have had their sort of stunt in their form, if you like, but the league table, they're still pretty much very high
up, higher than us. So
if you look at the other teams below them, the likes of Brighton, Palace, they're coming to nick points.
Even Fulham. This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm trying to say to people. So I agree with you. I don't think top 4 is even in the conversation at the moment, but I do think I'm willing to take a hit this season if it means we don't get top 4, we don't get European football for next season. But then there has to be some massive improvement over the next 12 months after that. So it goes back to what you said around Graham Potter and having to do something. You know, he's got a summer window coming up. I think he needs 2. I think you can't really judge him based on that. But I did say yesterday, I'm not backing Potter until I see improvements, and I still stand by that. I think, you need to see something on the pitch right now from Graham Potter. We need to see something on Thursday against Fulham and beyond. If we don't see that, I don't see how anyone can back a manager that can't get a result. String 2 passes together with a team, passing backwards, sideways, and I don't know how people can back that. So, I'm all for backing a process and a project and a plan, but I don't see it.
I'm sure Chelsea didn't anticipate being 10th in the league at this point of the season when they appointed Graham Potter.
I don't think so as well.
I'm really sure that wasn't part of the process. So I think 3 or 4 defeats, I think they'll pull the trigger. I genuinely do. The problem you've got is who comes in to replace Graham Potter?
It'll be Pochettino, maybe Zidane, Enrique. I think they're the top 3 names out there, but I can't see the club sacking them. I just can't. I can't see it now. They've set themselves up with the 5-year deal. They have to see that through, and if that's the way they want to do it, then that's fine. But like I said, long-term gain, short-term pain has to be a way. But I don't see it myself with Potter. But just before we wrap up, I know I've said that 3 times. Is Felix the answer? Sports Capital's asking. I think we mentioned it before. I think he's a good addition, but I do think, again, he wasn't the most pressing concern in terms of the squad. I think we needed to get a right back. We should have secured that Enzo Fernandez deal. I still think we need another striker. Yes, we've got Fofana coming in, but if he goes out on loan, we need someone else to come in. So, yeah, we'll have to see. But James, thank you very much for coming on. As I said, Pitch Footy, all of this content that he's doing and the team that he's working with is amazing. So I'm going to put the link in the description as well, so make sure you check that link. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel as well. We will have a match preview out for Fulham game tomorrow. It'll be coming out, so make sure you check that out as well. But James, as always, thank you very much, man. I appreciate you taking the time out.
I just want to thank you for having me on the Shed End. It's not often that I'm on this side of the camera. Normally I'm asking questions as opposed to giving answers, so it was quite refreshing. You're a brilliant host, and thank you very much to the Shed End for giving me some time today. It's a great pleasure to come on. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, James. Thanks, man. Thanks everyone for tuning in as well. Appreciate it. All the guys in the comments as well. Love every one of you. So thank you very much. Until next time, stay safe, and thank you very much for watching.